The mainstream media may have already coronated Joe Biden president-elect, but the legal challenges over alleged voting irregularities begin today. Joe Biden is moving forward as if the election results are final. He and Kamala Harris will have a briefing with their transition COVID advisory board this morning.
I'll work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as those who did. This is the time to heal in America.
But Donald Trump is ready to fight it out, tweeting, "The big city machines are corrupt. This was a stolen election." His lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, claims he has more than 50 witnesses to voter fraud in Pennsylvania alone and will have 4 or 5 cases filed by the end of the week.
For violating civil rights, for conducting an unfair election, for violating the law of the state, for treating Pittsburgh and Philadelphia different than the rest of the state, which is an equal protection violation, which goes under Bush v. Gore. I mean, this is something that just has to be addressed.
Missouri Republican Senator Roy Blunt, for one, is not calling Joe Biden president-elect yet.
I said on Friday, I thought it was time for the president to turn this discussion over to his lawyers, time for the lawyers to make the case that they have, both in court and to the American people.
President Trump still has a path to victory, and that path is to count every single legal vote that was cast. The media does not get to select our president. The American people get to elect our president.
Meanwhile, Biden's slim advantage and the loss of at least 7 Democrat seats in the House undercut any claims of a mandate. Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey called the Republicans' down-ballot success a rejection of the radicalism that has seeped into the Democratic Party.
The woke left had a major setback. I mean, nobody thought we were going to pick up seats in the House. Nobody thought we were going to hold the Senate, which I think is likely.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin says the results show Democrats scared many voters.
They were scared of this socialism that was thrown out there by a radical part of the so-called left.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says if there was rampant voter fraud in this election, it must be rooted out to save the integrity of our voting process.
If Republicans don't challenge and change the U.S. election system, there'll never be another Republican president elected again. President Trump should not concede.
Back in 2000, Al Gore was given his day in court. We should give President Trump his day in court. Let the process unfold.
The president is planning a series of rallies in states he's contesting. And just like in 2000, it may be that this election will be settled in the courts. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody joins us now, and there are obvious parallels here with 2000, the Bush-Gore race, right down to an attempt to impeach the president in the year before. So one signature difference is the media refrained from calling a winner until the legal process was completed. How much more difficult does it make it for the Trump campaign, for the Trump administration, now that the media has come out and said Biden's the winner?
Gordon, it makes it much more difficult, and honestly, journalists across this country who are doing that should really be ashamed of themselves. I mean, the bottom line is we need to operate in truth. And let's start with this. The President of the United States has not conceded the election. I mean, that's just a fact. Here's another fact. It is in court. Here's another fact. There's going to be recounts. Nothing's been certified. So I can go on and on. As a matter of fact, let me read you another fact, Gordon. This is from Al Gore. This is Al Gore speaking in 2000, some research over the weekend. This is what he said. We want a full and accurate count of all the votes. This is what he said in 2000. Then he said, once we have that full and accurate count of the ballots cast, then we will know who our next president is and our country can move forward. Now, the last time I checked, Gordon, that's exactly what Donald Trump has said. That's exactly what his lawyers have said. And yet we have this drumbeat, and it's more than a drumbeat. It's fireworks in the sky saying Biden 46. I mean, the media has fully gone in that Joe Biden is the next president of the United States. They're talking about the cabinet. They're talking about this. Listen, I get it. I understand exactly why they're doing it, but it is dishonest in its purest form.
Well, let's turn to some viewer questions because this is 700 Club Interactive and we want your questions to be asked as well. So a viewer on Instagram is asking, How likely will a recount change the early calls of a Biden victory?
Well, it depends exactly what comes in terms of evidence. What evidence is out there? We've heard about these Dominion voting systems that are potentially having problems, not just one state, but multiple states, many of these battleground states. So I think it just depends as to what is found at this point. I will say this, is that right now, some of these states, for example, Michigan, he's down by 150,000 votes. That's tough. Pennsylvania down by over 50,000, tough. But then if you go into Georgia, it's about 10,000 of a difference, not much. Arizona, 17,000, and they're still counting ballots there. And then Wisconsin is 20,000. So if you look at those three states, I think those are where you need to look if you're talking recounts at this point.
Well, let me ask a follow-up specifically on Pennsylvania. I watched the 60 Minutes report last night, and I found it curious that the head of elections for Pennsylvania in his interview talked about votes being cast on or before Election Day, and we had Pennsylvania Supreme Court say, well, we're going to count ballots that arrive after Election Day. So given those numbers and a 50,000 vote count, if you exclude ballots that arrived after Election Day, doesn't that really change Pennsylvania?
Well, it does, and there's two issues going on here. How many ballots came in after Election Day? So we're not quite sure exactly what that number is going to be. The sense is it'll be under 50,000. We don't know exactly. The other issue is a constitutional issue. This idea that it's the state legislature that is supposed to make changes to election law, not the Supreme Court, not the governor trying to make the law. That's what he did. I mean, the governor of Pennsylvania, a Democrat, tried to change the election laws. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made that extension. And that's the whole issue. Now, if you throw Pennsylvania out, if for some reason those Pennsylvania 20 delegates, or excuse me, electors are thrown out, then you have a whole new ballgame. Now, that's the Hail Mary. That's the Supreme Court play. And that's the constitutional issue that people like Mark Levin and many other, Ken Starr has been talking about this as well.
All right. We've got Judy on Instagram asking, is it possible that mail-in voters voted twice on Tuesday at the polls?
Yeah, so hard to say. Obviously, once again, we're in the evidence. I say we. I mean, we're waiting to find out from Trump lawyers what evidence they have of that. I will say this, that there might be some confusion in terms of what has been said out there. In other words, there are, for example, in the state of New York, if you cast a mail-in ballot and then you say, you know what? I actually don't really want to go with that vote. I want to change my vote. You can actually show up on Election Day and say, you know what, I cast a mail-in ballot a couple of weeks ago. I don't want that ballot to count. I want my vote today to count. You can do that in New York. It's not often that you can do that in certain states, but New York is one of them. So that might be some of what the viewer may be referring to. Okay.
What do you think the pressure is on the Trump administration, Trump campaign to concede the election? There were reports that his son-in-law has actually asked him to do that. I don't know if that's true, but what kind of pressure is coming on President Trump right now?
Well, there's enormous pressure for this president to, if not concede, to figure out what the exit strategy here is. At the same time, my sense of it, talking to two Trump advisors this morning, I think they're in it. Not just in it to win it. I think they're in it to prolong this legal strategy until they can exhaust all opportunities. I will say this, a quick point of clarification, and I want to make sure how I said this on the 700 Club, but there's a report out there by Axios saying that there's going to be rallies about this, that the president is going to have the president will not be holding rallies at this point about this. What I understand from my Trump sources is that these will be grassroots rallies across the country. We have no indication that the president of the United States will actually hold specific rallies about this. That is erroneous reporting from Axios, and something we want to clear up here.
Well, let's ask sort of the mechanics of a transition in the middle of limbo. Typically, the federal government pays for transition costs. If you don't have a legal candidate, and I'll remind everyone, we still don't have a legal winner, what happens to the Biden camp? How are they going to fund a transition?
Well, they're in limbo right now. That funding, you're right. It's millions and millions of dollars. I'm not sure the exact figure, but that has to come from the GSA. The GSA is the head of the GSA is a Trump appointee. They, at this point, are not relinquishing those funds. So we're all in limbo. They're in limbo. Now, having said that, I mean, there might be certain ways legally they can raise funds. I'm not quite sure the answer on that specifically, but I can tell you from a government standpoint, those funds aren't coming their way, and I'm told they're not coming anytime soon until all of this is resolved in court.
Okay. Well, David, thank you for your insights. And if you want the latest news, just go to cbnnews.com. I also encourage you to download the CBN News Channel app. A lot of different ways you can have it on your phone, on a tablet, but also on smart TVs, where we've got a 24-hour news channel and you can watch news on your television 24 hours a day. So either way, and get the latest. We'll keep you posted with the latest on the Trump campaign and on the election. And then what are the consequences once we have a declared winner?